Thanks, councillors and staff and guests. I'll open tonight's council meeting at 6 o'clock. If you could all stand for the opening prayer, it'll be read by Councillor Doxey tonight.
Lord, we ask that you guide us in our decision making, protect us and the community we serve from all that is evil, and strengthen our unity for the welfare of the city.
I'd like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people as the traditional custodians of the land that we meet upon today and pay my respects to elders past, present and future, for they hold the memories, culture, tradition and hopes of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that contribute to our community. Thanks. Webcasting. Got the advice about webcasting. This council meeting is being webcast and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to being recorded and webcast. Please ensure that if and when you are speaking at this council meeting that you are respectful to other people and use appropriate language. AlburyCity accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting, and an audio recording will be made for administrative purposes. Thanks. Mr. Zagnich.
Thank you. Chair, I want to just do the conflict of interest.
I have received one conflict of interest declaration tonight from Ms. Simona Code. It's for item number 13.4. This is a non-pecuniary, less than significant interest, and the description is I am on the Lutheran Aged Care Board as a director. Lutheran Aged Care is seeking funding under the Community and Cultural Grants process, and the action is that she will leave the chamber. Thanks, and we'll have the disclosure of political donations, please, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. This advice to the council meeting relates to the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979. Section 10.4 requires a person submitting planning applications or submissions regarding a planning application to disclose any reportable political donation and or gifts to any local councillor or employee of council. Reportable political donations include those of or above $1,000. The disclosure statement forms are available on Council's website or from the Customer Service Centre and must be lodged in accordance with the Act. The forms are also available at the back of the chamber during meetings. In dealing with development applications, councillors need to take into account specific matters contained in the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979. Accordingly, the provisions of Section 4.151 of that Act are set out in the Council Officer's report detailing issues to be considered. The Local Government Act 1993, Section 375A requires that a division be called whenever a motion for a planning decision is put at a meeting of the Council. Planning decision means a decision made in the exercise of a function of Council under the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act, including a decision relating to a development application, an environmental planning instrument, a development control plan or a development contribution plan under that Act, but does not include the making of an order under Division 9.3 of Part 9 of that Act. Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Zagnich. We'll move to the apologies. Councillor Doxey.
Thank you, Madam Acting Madam Mayor. Let me move the following recommendation: that the Council receive, note and accept the apologies of Councillor Mack, Councillor King and Councillor Cameron, and grant leave of absence for the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley.
Second the motion.
Thanks. Councillor Doxey, would you like to speak to that?
No, thank you.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. There is no mayoral minute tonight, so we'll move on to the action plans. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you. I move that the following action plans be received and noted. 1, actions complete for noting only. 2, actions awaiting response from external parties. 3, actions in progress. And 4, long-term issues more than 3 months.
Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury.
Second that, Madam Acting Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, would you like to speak to that item?
No, thank you, Madam Acting Mayor.
Thank you. I'll have no speakers for or against. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move to confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. Councillor Stutchbury.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the minutes of the council meeting held on Monday, the 8th of April 2019, at 6 p.m. be confirmed.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey.
Happy to second.
Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury, would you like to speak to those minutes?
Well, I've been over them with a fine-tooth comb and I could find nothing to discuss. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. Thank you. Reports from community forums, we have none. Notices of motion or rescission, we have none. Presentations and deputations, we have none. That brings us to reports and minutes of committees and working parties. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. I move that Council receive, note and accept the minutes and recommendations of the Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 9th of April 2019.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder, please, councillors. Councillor Stutchbury.
Yeah, happy to second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, would you like to speak to those minutes?
I would just mention a couple of matters that came from that meeting. One issue that this committee has embarked upon is the urban forest strategy, and we looked at a model being Shepparton, who has a plan to be a 40% tree canopy by 2040. If Albury aspires to that, it's a lot of trees to be planted every year, but I think it's a great aspiration. The other thing we looked at the meeting was the technology that shows us how important trees are in the city with regard to heat. And it showed, I think it was Olive Street, the mapping had been done with thermal imaging, and it showed that the trees reduce the temperature in the street by a significant amount. So an important initiative by that committee and something that we followed up over the next few months.
Thanks, Councillor Thurley. I have no further speakers for or against, so I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. Thanks. Documents for sealing, we have none tonight. That brings us to the officers' reports for consideration. Looking for a mover for the community fund budget. Please, councillors.
I have heard, I asked Frank about one, but not the other. I shouldn't. I'll stay in the room, etc. Same reason, PCYC.
Okay. Councillor Vanderman.
I'm just waiting for my iPad to behave itself, Madam Acting Mayor. I can read it from the board. I move the following recommendation to Council A, adopt the following draft 2019-20 Albury City Community Fund budget allocations, including GST. Albury Wodonga Hand Weavers and Spinners Guild Incorporated, 5,720. Suneva Incorporated, 6,700. Albury Lapidary and Allied Crafts Incorporated, $3,000. Albury North Manual Activity Centre Incorporated, $20,000. Albury Small Ball Rifle Club, $5,900. Albury Wodonga Rugby Union Football Club Incorporated, $15,000. Glenlee Tennis Club Incorporated, $700. Mitamita Canoe Club Incorporated, $20,500. Ross Circuit Preschool, $9,400. Tabletop Community Centre, $92,000. Thurgoona Community Centre in-kind support to review existing master plans. Lavington Springdale Heights Community Centre, $11,000. Urunga Early Learning Centre, $185,000, and Westside Community Centre, $14,000, and City of Wodonga, $110,000. And B, place the draft 2019-20 Albury City Community Fund budget on public exhibition as part of Council's draft 2019-20 operational plan.
Thank you, Councillor Vandervan. Councillor Stutchbury.
Very happy to second that, Madam Acting Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Vandervan, would you like to speak to that motion?
Briefly, Madam Acting Mayor, obviously these community fund budget allocations have been the subject of some discussions and robust discussions amongst councillors and staff, and there's an interesting range of in-kind and financial backing for these from each of the individual organisations. Some of them can't raise their own funds, so we're providing much more as a percentage of the total projects for some of them, as against some others which have funding more than 50%. These are good things that the community is doing. Most of these people are volunteers, and they're actually adding value to council assets. So from this perspective, it's a no-brainer, and they're all good applications and good funding opportunities for council. The interesting one, obviously, is the last one, City of Wodonga, 110,000, and it's a case of again a budget being less than what was anticipated as far as the cost of the project is concerned, and as this is one of our first initiatives as far as the two cities, one community is concerned, I feel that it's beholden on us to come to the party with half of the extra funding required to see that project through to completion. So I have much pleasure in requesting councillors support these particular funding budget allocations. Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderman. I've got another speaker for Councillor Doxey.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. With regard to the last one, the item 15, City of Wodonga, 110,000, I intend to support the motion entirely. However, I'd like to draw the following and suggest that later on we're going to discuss about allocation of funds to, for example, the Albury-Wodonga pipes and drums. I raised it at the workshop that I hope that Wodonga are going to pay their fair share of that amount. It would appear from the reports that I've read over the weekend, they're not paying anything towards the upkeep of the Albury-Wodonga pipes and drums. Albury-Wodonga pipes and drums train in Wodonga, they are based in Wodonga, they support the Wodonga show, they support the Wodonga Anzac Day service coming up this Thursday, yet they're not putting any money in. We get the benefit of the Albury-Wodonga pipes and drums, and it's not the only one. I notice also we're talking in terms of the Albury-Wodonga Eisteddfod. I would like to see Wodonga come to the party and support these activities that support both cities. Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Doxey. I have no speakers indicating they'd like to speak against, so I'll have another speaker for Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. I support the motion and especially agree that item 15 is an important opportunity to show our commitment to the two cities, one community, but I do take on board Councillor Doxey's concerns. It has been the case in previous years, the Eisteddfod is called the Albury-Wodonga Eisteddfod, but the funding is at least, I think when I last looked, it was about 10 to 1, Albury to Wodonga. And I think council delegates who are on the working party for two cities, one community need to raise this matter with Wodonga and their councillors to see if we can get something a little more equitable. But I support the motion.
Thanks, Councillor Thurley. I do have a couple of questions now. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you, Acting Madam Mayor. With reference to item number 15 and the City of Wodonga, would it be possible, noting this is a draft budget, would it be possible for us to, as a council to put this out as it is, but then consider perhaps reducing that $110,000 by way of paying directly additional funds to the pipes and drums and or the Eisteddfod? Would that be a possibility to the most relevant member of staff?
Mr Zagnich.
Thanks for the question through you, Madam Acting Mayor. Certainly it's possible to put the current proposal out for community comment. In terms of the further suggestion around reducing other perhaps unrelated funding projects, that'd really be a conversation directly with Wodonga Council rather than perhaps Council unilaterally, conditionally applying that approach to this particular funding. And the difference is, through you, Madam Mayor, if I can elaborate, is this initiative is a two cities, one community initiative identified, whereas those long-standing other commitments have not been part of that conversation historically. So there'd need to be a further conversation at working group level between the two councils to explore that further from a sponsorship and donations point of view. That'll be my suggestion in terms of taking that matter forward rather than dealing with it subject to this latest announcement.
Thank you. I have another question from Councillor Vanderman.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. Through to the relevant member of staff. Just item 2, Suneva. I note that they're looking for tenure of the squash courts at the old Lavington Panthers building. I'm a little concerned that they're spending the money, but I note that there are some conditions there around the tenure, but I'm interested to see what that tenure looks like, whether it's 1, 2 or 3 years, and whether the funding that we're providing is proportionate to the tenure that they're seeking.
Ms Code?
Thank you for the question, through you, Madam Mayor. I'm aware that the Soneva Squash Club is looking for tenure, and they have been in discussions with our staff. I will need to confirm the exact amount of tenure that has been secured.
Sorry, through.
Just to follow up,
Sorry, Mr Zagnich is indicating you'd like to comment as well.
Sorry, through you, Madam Acting Mayor. It is a condition of any grant that's advanced that tenure is secured. It's really a matter of determining the length of that tenure, as Ms Coates advised.
Okay, so just to follow up, then is there any thoughts on behalf from the staff as to what might be an appropriate tenure for the amount of money we're funding for these improvements?
Ms Code?
Thank you for the question, through you, Madam Chair. Traditionally, we'd be looking at possibly 5 years, but again, that'll be discussions with the relevant staff who deal with the leases and such matters.
Follow-up question.
Madam Acting Mayor, is there a possibility, and I know we're talking small amounts, but all the amounts add up, is it possible that once we understand what that tenure looks like, that we can be advised what the outcome might be from a staff perspective as to whether they think it's there's still a suitable funding allocation?
Mr Zagnich?
Yes, certainly. Thank you for the question again. So while this is assuming the proposals are adopted for community consultation, while that process is underway, we will seek to secure that tenure and then advise council prior to them formally adopting this funding package as to the suitability or otherwise of that tenure.
I have no further indication of any speakers for or against. If I might add my own comments. First of all, that I'm very proud that AlburyCity is able to support all of these wonderful community organisations who Councillor Vanderven rightly pointed out are mostly made up of volunteers. It's my personal view that we should be supporting item 15. It was identified as a strategic priority for the Two Cities One Community project. One of the reasons we went into the Two Cities One Community agreement is because we are one community, and I get the feeling that residents were tired of the us versus them attitude between us and Wodonga Council. I'm very proud that we're part of that partnership, and we absolutely should be providing funding to make sure that this project can be completed. Noting that we're only putting the draft budget out for community consultation at this stage. If members of the community feel strongly either way about that project, I really invite them to provide feedback to us so we can take that into account when we adopt the final budget. Councillor Vanderman, would you like to close debate on that item?
Just briefly, Madam Acting Mayor, can I just note that I think that Councillor Doxey and Thurley went off a bit early because the pipes and drums come up in the financial grants, not the community fund.
Yeah, Stedford was in that one.
Yeah, but there was Stedford was. I understand. So, but we'll take your comments on board for the next one anyway. Thank you.
I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. The draft financial assistance budget. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. I move that Council adopt the draft 2019-2020 AlburyCity Financial Assistance Schedule, including the following allocations in response to requests received for the 2019-2020 financial year. Unfortunately, it doesn't have Roman numerals up there. That's good. Albury Pipes and Drums, 6,875, a 2-year agreement, 2020 to 2021. 6,875. Survivors of Suicide and Friends, $4,000. North East Pride Collective, $4,000. Thagoona Community Centre, Energising Thagoona's Youth, $13,398. Thagoona Community Centre Little Kidlets Program, $15,820. The Scout Association of Australia, First Albury Scout Group, $16,370. 2-year agreement, 2020-2021. $16,370. Women's Centre for Health and Wellbeing, Albury Wodonga, Inc., $4,500. AlburyCity Band, $10,571, triennial agreement. Albury Wodonga Stedford Limited, $30,000, triennial agreement. Flying Fruit Fly Foundation, $20,855, triennial agreement. Hothouse Theatre Limited, $30,000, triennial agreement. Murray Arts, $32,770, triennial agreement. Murray Conservatorium, $12,100, triennial agreement. And the Ivor Memorial Community Trust, $28,800. And B, place the draft 2019-2020 financial assistance schedule on public exhibition as part of Council's draft 2019-2020 operational plan.
Thanks, Councillor Thorley. Councillor Stutchbury.
Happy to second that, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Thorley, before you open debate, I have a question. Are you happy for me to take that? Councillor Vandervan.
Okay, with regards to the item 3, we're providing $4,000 worth of funding for the North East Pride Collective. Is that contingent upon the other 3 councils also contributing equal funding of $4,000? And what happens if one or more of those don't provide the funding?
Ms Code.
Thank you for the question through you, Madam Chair. It is not contingent. We contributed last year $500 and the event occurred and was a very successful event. So we have just been asked to contribute $4,000 and they're hoping to get similar amounts from other organisations.
Councillor Thorley, would you like to open debate on that item?
We every year we support a lot of community groups and they give so much back to this community. We look at the Conservatorium, the Hothouse Theatre, the Flying Fruit Flies, the Stedford, the City Band. I could name the whole lot of them. These groups contribute so much to the community. A hell of a lot of it is volunteer work and it's great that council can use our income to support these groups who give so much back. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thorley. I have no indication of any speakers for or against this item, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. Item 13.3, I need a mover, please, councillors. Councillor Thorley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Acting Mayor, I move that Council A adopt the draft 2019-2020 operational plan, the draft 2019-2023 4-year delivery program and the draft long-term financial plan 2019 to 2029. B, place the draft plans on public exhibition for 28 days, concluding on Friday the 24th of May 2019. And C, consider any submissions received at a meeting of Council to be held on Tuesday the 11th of June 2019 prior to final adoption of the plans.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey.
Happy to second, Madam Acting Mayor.
Thank you. Before I ask you to open debate, Councillor Thorley, I've got another question. You happy for me to take that? Councillor Glacken.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Page 70 of our document. It's about the 5th dot point down, Murray River Experience Project 2.2 million, through you to the most relevant member of staff. It says, including Wagira Trail 1.1 million and Noriel Park Foreshore Design Works 300,000. Can I confirm that the 1.1 million for the Wagira Trail is not design works but actual physical works?
Ms Squire.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Acting Madam Mayor. Yes, it is for construction.
Excellent.
Thank you. Councillor Thorley, would you like to open debate on that item?
I don't want to say too much. Basically, this document comes after several council workshops and a fair bit of, sorry, I should say a huge amount of work. I think the document's probably 1,000 pages or more. What I most want to comment really is B, place the draft plans on public exhibition for 28 days. We would love to hear the public tell us what they think of this now rather than complain later. If you don't like what's in it, let us know before our meeting on the 11th of June. It can all be changed if you don't like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. I have another speaker for Councillor Glacken.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. With reference to some of the details within the document, I'd like to bring councillors' attention to, and hopefully also to the attention of the community, that this is truly an important document and something that our staff and we likewise take very seriously. If we look at page 72, we deal with domestic waste and also water and sewer pricing. And I note that the domestic waste management charge will be maintained at $250. And there will be other charges maintained in the water and sewer pricing. So it confirms that the staff look very carefully at the works being done, the requirement of our community, and ensure that the budget really does fit what our community needs, and we don't necessarily continue to increase prices. It is based on the requirement of the community and the facilities and services as they are run. So I just want to bring that to councillors, but also the community's attention. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Glacken. I have no indication of any speakers against, so I'll allow another speaker for Councillor Vanderven.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. Look, as Councillor Thurley alluded to in his opening remarks, this is the culmination of probably 8 to 10 months' work from council staff's perspective, and also a couple of months' work from councillors attending workshops and discussing the ins and outs of where we're going with our project to make AlburyCity one of the best regional cities in New South Wales. I've got a few concerns about some of the things which I've expressed to the council staff, but overall I'm very happy with the budget as an outcome as it's presented to us now. Whilst Councillor Thurley has said to people that if they don't like it, come and talk to us, I'm going to take the view that if people do like it, come and talk to us as well. So thank you, Madam Acting Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderven. I have no indication of any more speakers for or against. If I might add my own comments, I think this is an enormously important document that's going to shape the actions of council for the next 4 years. And the fact that we have councillors only speaking for and no debate or any amendment is a testament to the fantastic work that the staff have done in preparing this enormous document, and all the work that the councillors have done behind the scenes to make sure that the priorities that they've identified from the community have been included. So thank you to everyone that's worked on this, and I look forward to hearing what the community thinks of it before we adopt the final version in about a month's time. Councillor Thurley, would you like to close debate?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. Item 13.4, the community and cultural grants. I've received a second conflict of interest since the meeting began, which is for this item as well. It's from Councillor Glacken. The nature of the conflict is non-pecuniary, less than significant. Description is ordinary advisory committee member of PCYC Albury, and the action is to remain in the chamber and participate in the debate. I'd ask Ms Code to leave the chamber, please, at this point. Thank you. Councillor Vanderven.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. I'll move the recommendation that Council approves the allocation of 2018-19 Round 2 Community and Cultural Grants Funds to the following applicants. A. Usman Khawaja Foundation, Chance to Shine Cricket, 2,880 full funding. B. James Mitchell Hill Artist in the Front, 950 partial funding. C. Albury Wodonga Aboriginal Health Service, AWAHS Men's Shed Project, 2,950 full funding. D. Murray High School EALD Learn to Swim, 2,700 partial funding. E. Love Bites Respectful Relationships Youth Forum Committee, Love Bites Community Forum, 1,000 partial funding. F. Albury Chamber Music Festival 2019 Festival, $1,132.45, partial funding. Andrew Rewalt, artist, Alchemy Garden, $1,626, partial funding. H. James Eggleston, artist, By the Banks 2019, $1,132.45, partial funding. Lions Club Albury, Trash to Fash, 1,200, partial funding. J. Volunteer Resource Bureau, A Day in the Life of a Refugee, $3,000, partial funding. And K. Lutheran Aged Care River Mural, $1,900, full funding. Keep going. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderven. Councillor Doxey.
Happy to second, Madam Acting Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Vanderven, would you like to open debate on that item?
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. Just briefly, it's a really wonderful mix of applicants and a wonderful mix of projects in our cultural and community grants. So from the perspective, there's things around relationships, there's things for the men's shed, there's sport, there's art, there's a Volunteer Resource Bureau, Day in the Life of a Refugee. Well, there's so many varied projects there that I think AlburyCity do a wonderful job in that community and cultural grant space, and this is just another result of that. So thank you, Madam Acting Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderven. I have another speaker for Councillor Surley.
I'd really just like to reiterate Councillor Vanderven's comments. This is just the spread of these grants is incredible, and it's great to see so many community organisations putting their hand up and telling us about their programs and asking for funding, and it makes me extremely happy to see all of these and to be able to provide them funding.
Thanks, Councillor Thorley. I have no indication of any more speakers. If I can add my own comments as the chair of the Grants Assessment Panel for this year. Firstly, to acknowledge Richard Hull from the Flying Fruit Fly Circus, who joined us as a community member on the assessment panel, and also Narelle Vogel, who's our Cultural Development Officer, who's in the chamber, who also assists in coordinating the grants. The number of applicants who've been awarded partial funding is a testament to the quality of the applications that we had this year. As councillors have already noted, it's an outstanding variety of projects that are really going to benefit our community, and it was very difficult for the panel to make decisions, and we're very fortunate to have agreed on partial funding for a number of these projects so that they can go ahead, and I only regret that we weren't able to fully fund all of them. Councillor Vanderven, would you like to close debate on that?
No, thank you, Madam Acting Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. Thank you. We'll invite Ms. Code back into the chamber. Thanks. Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. I move that Council A note the contents of this report, B endorse stage 1 of the draft master plan for the Lauren Jackson Sports Centre, and C continue discussions with the PCYC to ensure complementary planning of both facilities.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey.
Happy to second, Madam Acting Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury, would you like to speak to that item?
Yes, this doesn't require a long or complex debate. Albury is a city with a long and proud sporting tradition, and the Lauren Jackson Centre is definitely part of that. And all of us who attend there regularly knows that whilst in pretty reasonable condition, it could do with an upgrade. And this particular master plan appears to have been pretty well received by all relevant bodies. So I think we just need to get on and get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stutchbury. I have no indication of any speakers for or against. Would you like to close debate on that item?
Oh, I could say it all again, or I could say no, thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. That brings us to the officers' reports for noting. Item 14.1, the monthly development statistics. Thank you. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Happy through you to move the recommendation as a motion that Council receive and note the information of the monthly development statistics report for March 2019. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thorley.
Second that motion, Madam Acting Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken, would you like to speak to that item?
I continue to be mindful of the additional work that we're asking our staff to do by preparing additional reports for us, as we as a council have requested. And I note that the reports continue to be a really good standard and enables us as councillors to get an even better grip and grip on and background to the development works that are being undertaken in our community. And I look forward to the day when we reduce the onerous number of reports on our staff once we better understand planning and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. I have no indication of any other speakers for or against the motion. Would you like to close debate?
Thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. Item 14.2, the investment balances. Need a mover, please, councillors. Councillor Vandervan.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. I'll move the recommendation the Council receive and note the investment balances report for the month of March 2019.
Thank you. Councillor Thorley.
Second the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Vandervan, would you like to speak to that item?
No, look fairly straightforward. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. Item 14.3, the Sustainability and Environment Community Awareness Program. Councillor Thorley.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. I move that Council receive and note the 2019 Community Awareness Program.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey.
Happy to second, Madam Acting Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Thorley, would you like to speak to that item?
Briefly, it's just good to see that this awareness program has a number of initiatives in it that the community can participate in. We're trying to get the message across about sustainability, and that means waste, it means our environment, it means a lot of things. So we've got things happening in schools, talks to the library, wildflower walks, bird counts, and a number of other things. I think it's a great initiative, and I encourage the community to get involved.
Thank you. I have no indication of any speakers for or against. Would you like to close debate?
So thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. Thank you. Item 15.1, Councillor Thorley.
Thank you. I move that Council receive and note my report regarding the Basin Community Committee meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury.
Happy to second that, Madam Acting Mayor.
Councillor Thorley, I've got an indication of a question. You're happy for me to take that before opening? Councillor Vandervan.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. Through you to Councillor Thorley. I'd just be interested in his comments around how much water is forming part of the decision-making process for voters in the upcoming federal election, and what's his view on where those issues are at, noting that there's a lot of movement, there's signs all over the town, pause the basin plan, and this, obviously, this conference or the Basin Community Committee meeting obviously is also very much concerned with water as an election issue.
Councillor Thorley, if you want to answer that question.
I'd prefer not to get involved in the politics which are circulating round the whole of the electorate. There's plenty of it happening, and those who heard ABC Radio National interview with the past Minister for Agriculture and Water would be well aware of the controversy and the issues that are occurring. I make this delegate's report. Normally, a delegate's report is given by a councillor who's a delegate to, by dint of being on council. I'm not a member of the Basin Committee because I'm a councillor, but I feel it's an important way to share the information from this committee, since it is called the Basin Community Committee. The meeting was held in Moree in late March, and I think there were 13 of the committee members present. We were briefed by a number of staff members of the Murray-Darling Basin Authority. We were made well aware of the very dry conditions right across New South Wales, and I think, in fact, the 2 driest years on record, or the second time we've had 2 such dry years on record in the last 135 years, and those with increasing high daytime temperatures have been part of the cause of part of the problem that we're experiencing across the basin. The only thing I'd really like to comment on is that New South Wales and other states are behind schedule in their water resource plans, and this is a very important part of the basin plan. So those people who criticise the plan need also to look at their state governments and ask why they are behind with these plans. New South Wales is particularly behind. They're supposed to be completed by June 30 this year. They probably won't be, and some extension of time will be required. The other matter I guess I'd like to report on was that we were briefed by Mick Kelty, the Northern Basin Commissioner. Those who have a bit of a memory might remember this man was the head of the Australian Federal Police, and as the head of as the Northern Basin Commissioner, he brings a forensic note to water issues in the basin. If I had anything to worry about, I would certainly be worried with Mick Kelty at the helm. Two matters that he raised with us. He has asked the National Party to give him a list of all donors to the party and all donations to the party in New South Wales. That is an interesting point. He also indicated that rather than prosecuting people under various water acts in various states, he would rather prosecute them under the Crimes Act, because if you're prosecuted under a water act or a statute, you may be fined a particular amount of money which will be listed in that act. However, under the Crimes Act, if you're found guilty, you can then be pursued for the proceeds of crime, and that could include all of your assets and all of your other income. So he has put on notice a number of people that there are issues with the plan and the enforcement and governance, and in answer to Councillor Van der Ven, that would seem to be almost the major issue that people are saying. The plan has not been properly implemented or governed, and its governance issues, in my mind, are the major problems. And Mick Kelty, I think, has put people on notice that if they have a problem or something to hide, then they need to be very careful. That's all I'd wish to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foley. I'll take it that was speaking to your item as well as answering
Yes.
Councillor Van der Ven's question.
It will be.
I've got an indication of another question from Councillor Glacken.
Thank you, through you, Madam Acting Mayor, to Councillor Thurley, if I may. There's reference, Councillor Thurley, to a discussion that was held, I'll refer to it, I'll read the section. The matter of Aboriginal water policy and cultural flows was discussed. This is a huge area, and lack of flows in the Barwon-Darling highlight the way in which the local Indigenous nations have been deprived of a connection to their cultural connections with the rivers. Can I ask, was there discussion that indicated that there had not been dries historically, and so I'm not really sure how to read this. Were there never dries previously, or is it just this most recent dry that was discussed? Thank you.
Councillor Thurley.
It's a more general issue than that. It's that the Indigenous nations feel that they have not been properly consulted in the way flows are allocated, and people have not taken into account their connection with rivers. And that's particularly on the Barwon-Darling, but it applies. So we have NBAN, the Northern Basin Aboriginal Nations, we have Mildren, the Murray, Lower Darling River Indigenous Nations, and others who say that they have not been properly consulted with regard to water and water sharing plans. I believe that the river has stopped flowing on occasion in the past. This is not the first time. It's just that they feel that their connections with river have not been adequately considered in all the planning.
Thank you.
I have no indication of any more speakers for or against. Councillor Thorley, would you like to close debate?
No, thank you.
Thanks, councillors. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. That brings us to notice of urgent business. I am aware of 2 items of urgent business tonight. The first is appearing on the board. Councillor Vanderven, were you going to move that?
Happy to move, Madam Acting Mayor, that Council 1 acknowledges the importance of federal funding through the Financial Assistance Grants Program for the continued delivery of council services and infrastructure. 2, expresses concern about the decline in the value of financial assistance grants funding at the national level from an amount equal to around 1% of Commonwealth taxation revenue in 1996 to a current figure of around 0.55%. 3, calls on all political parties contesting the 2019 federal election and their local candidates to support the Australian Local Government Association's call to restore the national value of financial assistance grants funding to an amount equal to at least 1% of Commonwealth taxation revenue, and therefore to provide a fairer share of federal funding for our local communities. And 4, supports the Australian Local Government Association's Federal Election Initiatives document.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderven. Councillor Thorley.
Second the motion, Madam Acting Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Vanderven, did you want to speak to that at all?
Yes, I've been in this chamber now for some 15 plus years, and one of the most disappointing parts of the way that the federal government treated us was to stop indexation of financial assistance grants on the basis that they needed to spend the money elsewhere. Obviously, that's one of the things that really hurt us in our ability to provide the infrastructure that our city needs in a growing environment. And I think that with these facts and figures over a 23-year period to have basically devalued the FAG grants to the extent of about 50%, I think we need to redress that. There's plenty of money. They seem to be spending it willy-nilly on promising lots of things in this election campaign, and this would be a worthwhile objective for all councils in Australia to support and to provide better infrastructure for their communities out of these financial assistance grants. So I fully support the intent of the ALGA in this particular matter, and also any other matters listed as far as their action plan for the elections is concerned. Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderven. I have no indication of any more speakers for or against. If I could just second the comments that you've made and acknowledge the hard work of the Australian Local Government Association in trying to lobby on behalf of our sector to the federal government. We all know that cost shifting is continued onto local government to look after more and more needs of the community, and it's timely that this campaign is happening, and hopefully we can get a better result out of the federal election. Thank you. I'll put the motion. Councillors, all those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. Councillor Thorley.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. I'd just like to, I went to the La Trobe University graduation and prize giving ceremony, and at that ceremony there were a number of AlburyCity community prizes given. So I just like, the recipients of those spoke to me and were grateful. I'd just like to mention their names. The AlburyCity Community Leadership Prize was given to Forward Gunakai. The AlburyCity Student Bursary was awarded to Elisa Blackshaw, who is studying in the business school at La Trobe. The Andrea Hoare Memorial Prize, the AlburyCity Student Bursary in psychology, in the Department of Psychology and Counselling. Melissa Middleton received that, and they all expressed their gratitude to Albury City for their generosity.
Thank you, Councillor Thorley. I have one third item of urgent business, please, which is a question through to staff. It's been brought to my attention that there have been a number of changes made at the Foresters Grove Park as part of the upgrade works that are happening, and that some members of the community are concerned about the commemorative plaques and that they may have been moved. Could staff please let councillors know what's happened in that space? Ms. Code.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Acting Madam Chair. I would like to first of all acknowledge that we do have a member of the public with us tonight who has made contact because she is distressed about the removal of the plaques, and I would like to firstly explain my sorrow for your loss and also apologise for your distress. We have, as a result of carrying out the works, had to remove the plaques for safekeeping. Our staff have been working with the Lions Club in Lavington to work out the best location for the for the plaques when they're restored, but also where and how they should be best displayed. Through consultation with the Lions Club, it was decided to build a wall of reflection, which is a quiet space in that area where the plaques will be restored, but at the moment they have had to be removed to keep them safe. Staff have worked through the Lions Club hoping that the Lions Club would have contact with all of the members, because we don't know who all of the members are and who all of the family are. But again, I do apologise that it has caused distress, and that was never meant to be the intention, and we do need to make sure we update our website now that we do have a place for the wall of reflection. It is certainly something that never ever should have caused any distress to anyone.
Thank you, Ms. Code. And I do have a follow-up question, which is, do we have any indication of the timing of when the wall of reflection will be ready?
I will need to take that on notice, but I do know that the entire project will be complete on June 2nd, where it will be open to the public. But the exact timings of that particular item, I will need to inquire with the Enviroculture.
Okay, thank you. I have no indication of any other items of urgent business, and we have no confidential matters tonight, so I'll close the meeting at 6:52. Thanks, councillors.